sending in people with lots of problems. The bringing drugs, the bringing crime, and the rapists. How do you start it off? Mexico pushes people into the country and we push them out. Mexico pushes people across the country that are criminals, that are drug dealers. Look at the Homeland Security reports. Look at all the reports. They're causing tremendous problems in terms of rape, in terms of crime, and in terms of murder. If there's an illegal immigrant, they're not supposed to be in our country. I'm going to Arizona this weekend. Some people say that the crowd is going to be enormous. Somebody even said that I'm the most popular man in Arizona. That's because I'm speaking the truth. These people are living with it. When I look at Rick Perry and when he talks about the border, he did a terrible job. He was the governor of Texas. He could have done a lot better job than what he did. He did a terrible job. When you have illegal immigrants coming into our country and committing crimes, they're not supposed to be here.
Hi, I'm Myron Gore, and I support Donald Trump because all his main goals completely coincide with my goals. It's safe borders, the getting rid of illegal immigrants, and many more. People call him racist, but they're just mixing up his words. People think that if you're a patriot and you love your country and you love your, ancestors, the history of your people, that you are suddenly racist. I like his border idea because country is like family. You need to keep doors locked so you don't get robbed or people come into your house and lots of crime can happen. So you need to keep your doors locked and people will knock and ask permission to enter. People say that he is sexist, and that's a complete lie. I've even heard that recently he's been considering having a woman be vice president. And the other party, they mix his name in with dirt and make him sound like a terrible person and make up all these lies. And I think people get so outraged when he said, my father gave me a small loan of $1 million, and anyone can get $20 million and still end up on the street broke and homeless. But he went from 1 million to $1 billion. Donald Trump is very smart man, very smart.
I like Bernie Sanders, but I don't think a lot of people will like him because he's a socialist. And as you may know, America is democratic, not socialist. People say that he's going to steal the rich people's money, but dividing it among the poor is the best thing to do. The rich pay less taxes than the middle-class citizens of the U.S. People say that he's like a Robin Hood because he takes the rich's money and return it among the poor people. And that is sort of what he is doing, but it's not like that. The media portrays him as a bad person, and I also like him because of his environmental policies. I don't like him as a person, but I like him as a candidate.
Talking about? Oh yeah. Hi guys, my name is Brianna Olivares. And I think the presidential elections are going to be really interesting because Hillary is a hypocrite. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Furthermore, so she's a hypocrite because she's always like, oh yeah, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, but really, their families are friends. Also, she's a criminal for what she did with, what's this? I think it's Barack, the president, yeah, whatever his name is. So, they both need to be punished because this is a free country. and stuff like that. Also, I'm gonna move on to Donald Trump. He's really interesting because he's also a hypocrite. He was just found like harvesting illegal immigrants into the country, but he didn't pay them very much. And the wall idea, I don't really know where he was going with that. Maybe he was just lighting up, but who knows? And same with like kicking all about, like how is that gonna work? Come on, man. Oh yeah, I like Bernie. He's cool. He's trying to protect the environment and all that. And he's trying to legalize weed too, so, you know.
I think it's interesting that the whole population is focused on Donald Trump. I mean, he may up the ante in the Muslim side of it, but doesn't mean he's that bad of a candidate. He may express anti-immigration in more troubling fashion, but it doesn't mean he's that bad of a candidate. You have a candidate who sponsored the bill that I supported. In the international community, the science is just unequivocal. I mean, you have the United States, and then you have the rest of the world. Everyone relies on the United States to make a move. I mean, if you look at the statements made by Mr. Trump in the Republican primary, no one else thinks climate change is serious. I mean, I'll let the race speculate by itself, but I don't think Trump will become president.
I am respectful of the choice of many people who think that Ted Cruz represents their views. But my personal view of politics is that conservatism is not the way forward. I believe he is a good politician because politicians should be defined by good. There are two aspects of good. One is effective, so good means working hard and doing the stuff which he is elected to do. And second is what actually he does. So in terms of his effectiveness, I think that he's a very actively working, hard-working politician. He has the tools, and he has the people around him, so I guess that answers the question. So for me, his campaign is going quite successful. As much as I disagree with some, or sometimes major points of his beliefs and thoughts, then I could disagree with him as a politician. And from my perspective, that doesn't sound like a very good politician. But going back, he represents population, some part of the population of the United States, and he represents this part of people. He keeps a good chance of winning the Republican nomination. If so, then he'll be on the final ballot for the November elections. And based on numbers, he'll have millions of people coming to polls and voting for him. Probably in some senses, he'll be a good selection, because short term he could give, if you name, profit. After he will win the Republican nominations, if he'll be nominated, then his campaign will need a lot of change, because currently he is fighting not with a Democratic nominee, but the fight is between Republican candidates. And the fight, to be honest, leaves me in a state of disbelief that in this country it could be so indecent. But going back, he represents some part of the population of the United States, and he represents this part of people. After the Republican Party will select a single candidate, it will be a matter of if he'll be nominated. It will be dependent on how he will turn his campaign to getting people believing in his message. So it's a completely different stage than it is now, so I have no idea how he will be doing this. I strongly believe that the economy needs real change. Moving forward, it needs real changes in how the economy is, I would say, helped, because government is not and should not control how the economy is run, but government really plays an important role in supporting infrastructure, educating people, keeping people who for some reasons fall from the wagon supported, and that part actually makes the country strong.
I'm one of the first generation of the family to be, I was born, and my parents were born in Mexico. I'm one of the first generation of the family to be here, and I am proud. My parents taught me Spanish when I was little, and then when I knew Spanish, I went to an English school. So, it was their priority for me to learn the language of my native culture. My parents, they were found in Mexico, but, they came to the United States for a better future. And, many of our friends, they crossed the border. We're part of America, come on, 17% of the population. But we, Mexicans, are treated like terrorists. But why? Here, the living conditions are great. But we love Mexico, and, what we get paid weekly here is enough of work back home. We, Mexicans and Latinos, are not treated equally. People see us as poor with not much to live with. But, we love our country, Mexico, and it's not a bad country. American people, they go to Mexico to the beach, and, Mexico is not a bad country. We try hard here. We try and learn English to acquire a better job. We try hard, and, we have many resources to keep our culture here, so this is great.
Some people say I did a good job moderating the presidential debate. Thank you. Well, so Donald Trump does not feel the same, and I can no longer go on Twitter. It's very strange to see the headlines come in from our team and on our iPhone, and to see yourself, to see your name over and over and over again. It's a bizarre place to be, and it's not a place I want to be. I am looking forward for that to end. It's been a surreal 6 months because we could never anticipate anyone would react in this particular way, but you've got to keep your head up, shoulders back, and forge forward. When I asked that question, I wasn't looking for a sizzle. He got a tough question, but they all got tough questions. The first round on the presidential debate in particular is all about electability. What is your weak spot? What is going to prevent you from getting the nomination? And that's where I was going with him. I mean, they want George Washington's job, and I'm a member of the press, and we're supposed to press and see if they're worthy. Donald Trump didn't show up to one of my debates. I don't know exactly why. I mean, at first he said it was about me, then he said it was about a statement my boss put out, and then he said it was about a gum wrapper on the floor. I don't know why he didn't show up at the end. I mean, he didn't know I was there. Fox announced it back in December, and then they renounced it in August. But he didn't show up in the end, and that's all that matters. But I mean, as I've said before, he got a tough question, but they all got tough questions, and that's not a reason not to show up. You've got to wind up and do it. It's not so much what Trump writes or says, it's how he gins up anger in so many people. And it manifests in my life in several ways. Threats against my life mostly. It's not so much that I'm worried someone's going to come and shoot me down, but I do fear that someone may hurt me in the presence of my children. But I would still let him come on my show. I mean, he wouldn't even have to apologize.
Donald Trump, he's on the news, he's on Vine, he's on social media, he's on everything. Everybody knows him. But Donald Trump is the worst person in the whole entire world. Everybody is saying a whole bunch of stuff about him, and that's just making him more popular. But as long as he doesn't become president, I'm fine. My parents like him because they say he speaks his mind, but I hate him. Everybody is talking about how he's different because he doesn't use that so-called political filter. I mean, I get you're speaking your mind, but say it in a way that won't hurt people. And I do like people with a different background, but maybe somebody who's more into politics. I mean, he's so undiplomatic, he's just crazy. And he always talks about himself when he says he hates this or he hates that. He's just like a 5-year-old. He throws tantrums of stupid things. Him and Ted Cruz are literally like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And everybody who votes for him is probably just like, oh, I think he'd make a good president because he's funny. So, the whole border situation. My brother has a friend who lives in Mexico, and if they put a border there, they won't be able to come over here anymore. It is a free country. And the Muslims hate what's happening, and they wish they could stop it. So to ban all of them would be just a little extreme. And some of his ideas are not the worst, but most of them are. He should not be president. He speaks his mind and doesn't really care what other people think, but sometimes the thing that's not presidential is what's on his mind. He just says mean things about other people when he's trying to win president by those people. He's like, you're awful. Vote for me. I think he's a horrible person, no offense. And when he talks about his money, he's always like, where I've gotten hasn't been easy for me, but I'm filthy rich. I'm gonna go play with a small one of $1 million. I really care about who's gonna become president because this is where I live. I don't want somebody controlling me who I don't like. I mean, a president should appear confident, but I also like it when they're humble at the same time. And you need experience to become president. If you have no experience, something's gonna go wrong. I mean, if Donald Trump becomes president, I'm moving to Canada. And your president can remove laws, he can make new laws, so who's gonna rule next is gonna affect us because we're pretty much the next generation, and we're gonna have the country next. So Donald Trump will not be your next president.
people ask me, what do I think of Donald Trump? I always answer by saying that I think he's racist and sexist. Because he says mean stuff about people and calls Mexicans bad things. I'm worried he could turn the country into a war zone because people have compared him to Hitler with bad things he says. I'm kind of worried that he could do what he says he will do and that he's not joking around like some people think. And I think people are going to finally realize that he can't take the country seriously, and they're going to stop voting for him.
Today we are launching a campaign called He for She. We want to try to end gender inequality, and to do this we need everyone involved. We want to try to galvanize as many men and boys as possible to be advocates for change. And we don't just want to talk about it, we want to try to make sure that it's tangible. And the more I've spoken about feminism, the more I realize that fighting for a woman's right has too often become synonymous with man-hating. The one thing I know for certain is this has to stop. For the record, feminism, by definition, is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is a theory of political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. I started questioning gender-based assumptions a long time ago, when at 14 I started to be sexualized by certain elements of the media. When at 15 my girlfriends started dropping out the beloved sports teams because they didn't want to appear muscly. When at 18 my male friends were unable to express their feelings. I decided I was a feminist, and this seemed uncomplicated to me. In my recent research, feminism has become an unpopular word. Women are choosing not to identify as feminists. Apparently, I'm among the ranks of women whose expressions are seen as too strong, too aggressive, isolating, and anti-men, unattractive even. Why has the word become such an uncomfortable one? I am from Britain, and I think it is right that I am paid the same as my male counterparts. I think it is right that I should make decisions about my own body. I think it is right that socially I am afforded the same respect as men. But sadly, no one country in the world where women can expect to see these rights. No one country has yet achieved gender equality. These rights I consider to be human rights, but I'm one of the lucky ones. My life is a sheer privilege because my parents didn't love me less because I was born a daughter. My school did not limit me because I was a girl. My mentors didn't assume I'd go less far because I would give birth to a child one day. And if you still hate the word, it's not the word that is important, it's the idea and ambition behind it, because not all women receive the rights I have. Men, gender equality is your issue too, because the day I've seen my father's role as a parent being less valued by society. Despite my need for his presence as a child as well as my mother's. I've seen young men suffering from mental illness, unable to ask for help, for fear it will make them less of a man. In fact, in the UK, suicide is the biggest killer of men between 20 to 49. I've seen men made fragile and insecure by the distorted sense of what constitutes male success. Men don't have the benefit of gender equality either. We don't often talk about men being imprisoned by gender stereotypes, but I can see that they are. And when they are free, things will change for women as a natural consequence. If men don't have to be aggressive to be accepted, women won't feel compelled to be submissive. If men don't have to control, women don't have to be controlled. Both men and women should feel free to be sensitive. Both men and women should feel free to be strong. It's time that we perceive gender on a spectrum rather than two sets of opposing ideals. I want men to take up the mantle for their daughters, sisters, and mothers, to be free from prejudice, and their sons to have permission to be vulnerable and human too. All that I know is that I care about this problem and I want to make it better. Given what I've seen and the chance, I want to be able to say something. Statesman Edmund Burke said, "All that is needed for the force of evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing." Because the reality is, if you do nothing, in 75 years, or when I will be nearly 100, before women will be paid the same as men for the same work. If you believe in equality, you might be those inadvertent feminists I spoke of earlier. I applaud you. We are struggling to find a uniting word, but we have a uniting movement. It is he for she. If you want to join us, you have to ask and you can ask yourself, if not me, who? If not now, when? Thank you very, very much.
The reality TV show everyone's talking about is the presidential elections. This is Race to the White House.
Knock the crap out of her, would you?
It was mostly the usual Democratic talking points. Tax the rich, free college, once a month bagel day will be donut day. And no surprise, the senator from Vermont stayed true to his core message.
Morally wrong that the top 0.1% in this country own almost 90%, almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. 57% of all the income is going to the top 1%. 1%, 51%, 36%, 90%, 80%, 63%.
I would not want to split a check with Bernie Sanders. I'm tired of 98% of water drinkers footing the bill for 2% of mimosa drinkers. Meanwhile, Hillary had some tough talk for Wall Street.
I represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
Yeah, back in 2007, before the big crash, she said, cut it out, mister. I've had just enough of you collapsing the economy. Meanwhile, on Super Tuesday Part 3, Hillary shut out Bernie 5-zip. Bernie Sanders has promised to stay in the race for all 50 states. 51 if you count the state of denial. Meanwhile, over on the interesting side, Donald Trump holds a commanding lead in national polls, so the GOP establishment is lining up behind him to push him in front of the train.
Nobody has ever in the history of politics received the kind of negative advertising that I have. And you explain it to me because I can't. My numbers went up. I don't understand.
For once, we agree with you, Donald Trump. What's happening? What's happening? It might have something to do with the great endorsements Donald's been getting. For instance, former candidate and man always looking directly into the sun, Ben Carson, who told this inspiring tale of how he came to support Trump.
I have to look at what is practical. I didn't see a path for Kasich, who I like, or for Rubio, who I like. Is there another scenario that I would prefer? Yes, but that scenario isn't a bit.
That is a rough endorsement. I'll tell you what, the bar's about to close, you're not getting any younger, neither am I. Let's get married.
Look at it. Even if Donald Trump turns out not to be such a great president, I'm only looking at 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, how much can go wrong in 4 years? 4 years, World War II just flew by. But, as inevitable as Donald Trump may seem now, there's one key state he didn't win. Ohio, which went to its governor, John Kasich, after which Kasich made a pretty bold claim considering it was his first and only win.
Know something. We are going to go all the way to Cleveland and secure the Republican nomination.
Governor, here's a riddle. What's round at both ends and has got to be high in the middle? You, because to secure the nomination at the convention in Cleveland this summer, Kasich would have to get 116% of the remaining votes.
of the remaining delegates. We would have to make him governor of every state remaining, and some states we don't even have yet. He's looking very good in North Kentucky and Massachusetts. Oh, they love him down in Massachusetts, the old Massachusetts, which fought on both sides in the war between the states. We are so proud of both our crawdads and our chowder. Massachusetts will rise again. But there's only one man left now who can stop Donald Trump, and his name is Ted Cruz. Because here's the deal, mathematically, Cruz is the only one who could beat Trump. Here's the deal, mathematically, Cruz is the only one who could beat Trump. Because if he can't do it, there's only one other way to deny Trump the nomination. And that is a brokered convention. You see, when a candidate wins a primary, he wins delegates who are committed to him at the party convention, but only for the first ballot. So, if Donald Trump doesn't get 1,237 delegates, then they're all free to vote for whoever, which is great news because the Republican campaign can start all over again. Only this time, it's crammed into 1 week, so you can binge watch the death of the GOP.
Hi guys, my name is Kai Shore and I'm going to talk about Donald Trump. Now, I like Donald Trump. When people say that he's going to be a bad president because he's going to ban all Muslims, Japan doesn't let any Muslims in and nobody says that. That's racist. I've read the Quran and there are many violent verses and people who haven't read it are ridiculing Trump for being racist. People say that he's going to be a bad president because he wants to build a wall next to Mexico. But Mexico has a wall on their southern border and nobody says that's racist. Also, we have so many churches in the United States and we're wasting money on them. They should fund themselves. In addition to that, Trump doesn't want to get rid of guns. Saying guns kill people is like saying that spoons and ice cream make people fat or fatter.
Well, you know, the mainstream media is portraying Donald Trump as a quack and crazy, and part of that I partly agree with, but the other part of that is that politicians have been lacking in honesty, and I'm kind of appreciative that he brings that to the table. People are saying he says this and saying he says that, but when I hear what he actually said, that's not what he said at all. In a nutshell, I think he's just as qualified as any of the other candidates. For Hillary, I think she's a liar and a criminal, and for Ted Cruz, I think he's a very intelligent individual, and his lean towards Constitution makes me like him a lot. But back to Hillary, she does have a few advantages given the fact that she is a woman, but I don't think she'll receive 100% of the gender vote, because I've heard many women say that they are disgusted by her and her views. Another advantage she has is because of Bill. Since Bill was a former president, I think many people agree with his point of views, and she'll have a definite advantage of that. But as I said earlier, she won't receive 100% of the gender vote. But those are two of her biggest advantages, and I think she'll be a terrible president. So basically, as I said earlier, in a nutshell, Donald Trump is just as qualified as any other candidates, and I think he'll be the best president.
I'm not saying that the industry is racist. I'm saying the act of not choosing models of color is racist. So we're not calling them racist. We're saying the act is racist, and they may not intentionally admit, but they do too. They hire casting directors, they hire stylists, and they're not the ones to choose the model. It's not so much the designers of the model, but it does affect their house and their brand. Last year, the models were 6% black and 9% Asian. This is worse than when I went into the industry 27 years ago. Many people ask me why I haven't gone up to Victoria Beckham. Who says I haven't? I haven't gone up to Victoria Beckham, but I have gone up to other designers, and I have said, hey, why are you not using models of color? And they say, you're right, we will, but it doesn't happen. We don't want them to hide behind the aesthetic of saying the show will be great. We just want them to allow and balance diversity. I have been in this, like I said, I have been in the industry for 27 years now, almost 28. It's heartbreaking. It's depressing to even be sitting here in 2016 having this interview. I'm not pointing to anybody to try to make them feel embarrassed or anything. I'm just trying to say, be aware. And I'm not pointing to a country. I'm pointing to the fashion industry as a whole. And the reason I keep naming names like Victoria Beckham, Mulberry, and Alexander McQueen is because they haven't used any models of color.
Trump, where do I even even begin with this man here? He's racist. He says sexist things, and he says that, like, oh, building a wall so he can help America. But that's just going to reflect badly on the country. Seriously, everybody hates him. So if we have a leader that's taking all of us to war or something like that, if something bad happens, then nobody's going to like us because we have Trump as our leader. Clearly, because Bernie's going to do more than us. Because, like, Bernie actually is pointing out what's actually going to happen and what's actually going to help students in college with free healthcare and free education. But what is Trump going to do? He's just sexist. He just hurts people. And sometimes I feel like that he does it for fun. Well, seriously, Trump, what are you going to do? Well, I know many people ask me, what do I think about Trump? Well, I'll tell you this. I do not like him at all. I am a Bernie person. I do not like Trump. What he says is just, I don't understand him. I just don't get it. Like, he's so racist that, like, I can't take it anymore, and he's so sexist. Well, give me a second here. Okay, before I get all mad here, he's just one of those guys that, like, you just think, and then if you look at him and you look at his own speech, what is he really trying to say here? He says building a wall is going to make America great again. Well, how do we make America great? Did America used to be great? Because, like, I know many people say it did used to be great, and now it's not great right now. Well, I think it was great, but what he's just trying to say is just going to cause more conflicts in between Mexico and the United States. So before I say much more, I'm just going to leave.
Gender discrimination can come in many, many forms. So it is quite simply someone who is not given the same rights based solely on the fact that they are male, female, or any of the transgenders. Personally, I wouldn't call myself a feminist, no, but I also believe in equal rights for all genders, so I would call myself a humanist. In relation to that, I think that people need to be able to make their own choices, whether they're women or men or anything else. For example, a nice-looking woman is walking down the street. It's okay for a boy to whistle at her. And it's okay for women to be half-dressed in the media. And so I think that a lot of it is just the male attitude towards women in public areas. Like I said, I'm a humanist. And I'm open to whatever. I don't think that anyone should be discriminated against for any reason whatsoever. And so, like I said, it's really the male attitude towards women in public areas. And it's human nature to discriminate. And when I say discriminate, I mean that it's human nature that if someone is different, we question, we raise our eyebrows. And we raise our eyebrows, and I think that we've come a long way. And when I say discriminate, I mean that I believe that discrimination, it's not quite what you believe in, it's how you act. And I think that in the future, people will act appropriately, which means not acting on your biases, acting appropriately. So I think that we've come a long way, like I said. So in the future, I hope and I think that it will get better. So I think that in conclusion, I think that people will become more open-minded.
The Black Lives Matter movement is almost like a modern-day civil rights movement. It's so good, I think, because of the power of social media like Instagram and Twitter. America was built on slaves. It was built by black people it was built for a certain type of people. Society is just unequal towards blacks. I mean, people of color. Basically, if you aren't a white male in the society, everything's gonna be harder for you. I mean, I've been called racial slurs like nigger and nigga. And when I was young, I thought that it was okay for my white friends to say that to me and for me to say it to them. But as I've gotten older, I definitely don't think that's okay. I've also been called things like Oreo, only because I talked a certain way. My parents sent me to an all-white private school, so to my black friends and family, I talked a little bit differently. Not that my parents didn't teach me to articulate, they did. But black, white, Hispanic, whatever they were, they called me an Oreo. I hate that term because why is articulating a white people thing? And good is always the light, and bad is always the dark. We just need to get it together instead of always just assuming. Even in the black community, like the lighter you are, the better you are, the darker you are, the worse you are. Even white people. I mean, everyone wants to be black, but no one actually wants to be black. No one wants to go through the struggle. Like Kylie Jenner's lips. Those aren't hers. And white people with dreads, like, do what you want, but I'm just saying. In my opinion, not all white people are racist, but white people have always been the ones to be racist. Like colonialism and imperialism in Africa, India, Asia, even to other white people. In the 80s, Ronald Reagan passed laws specifically to put people of color behind bars. Under President Obama, we've seen more jobs and free health care for everyone. Like Donald Trump saying, let's make America great again. Like, what's again? Where are we going back to? I just think that equality and acceptance are a key part of our nation, and it's scary and aggravating to me that we can't accept it.
It's just irritating, you know? I mean, racism is just so annoying. I mean, it's not just by the way you look, but they judge you by the way you act too. I mean, don't you think? I mean, I don't know, I like to think of it as a piano. You have some songs that are made up of white keys and some songs that are made up of black keys. But why do we still call them black keys and white keys? They're keys in general, and we're just basically calling them by the way they look. It's kind of similar to how we're doing it in society. I mean, we have, like I said, keys, and they have different personalities, and it's like they make different sounds, and when you have those composers who put all this music together, it's just like it brings it into one. Why can't we do that in society today? I'm not really sure. Well, like, my sister comes home and complains about all her homework and things like that. I mean, I'm not looking forward to going into high school, but she tells me all these things, and like we watch the news together after dinner, and she just tells me about how, you know, there are problems like global warming, for instance. She's told me a lot about that. How does global warming and racism really relate? Well, I have no idea, but I mean, if you ask me my opinion on racism, I'm pretty sure you already know. Look, people, I have to be honest with you. We wrote like 2 hours of jokes about Democrats, but we had to throw them all out because then the Republicans laid out a banquet of all-you-can-eat crazy. Last week, after Iowans wished 12 candidates into the cornfield, one was left standing in triumph. Iowans chose fist-faced horseshit salesman Ted Cruz as their new prize heifer. Now, normally, the winner gets an Iowa bump, but just how big was Cruz's bump heading into New Hampshire?
Cruz, who won Iowa, is in 5th place.
Gee, I wonder why. Could it be this?
Your husband is sort of actively disliked by a lot of his colleagues in the Senate, Republican colleagues in the Senate. But you chose to spend your life with him. When you hear these kinds of things said about your husband, that he's just not likable, that he's insufferable, I mean, you've heard them all.
It's not his fault, Dana. My husband has stage 4 cancer of the personality. Now, I dislike Ted Cruz as much as the next everyone, but that's no reason to be rude to Ted's loving wife and possible hostage. Cruz's Iowa bump was snatched by Marco Rubio, 3rd in Iowa, 2nd in New Hampshire, 1st to exploit his kids for a photo op.
Are you hot? Huh? Would you like some water? I want some water.
Oh, look at that. Marco Rubio has finally found a way to look like the big boy in the room. Hey, you know, Ted Cruz has somehow managed to reproduce. Maybe he can use his child to seem more personable. Maybe she just needs to get to know him. Could anything be more awkward? Turns out, yes. Saturday night, as Republican debate went off the rails at about the -1 minute mark when 43% of Republican candidates failed the important presidential test. Can you walk successfully to a podium? A task routinely mastered by laboratory mice and frightened 4-year-olds on toddlers and tiaras. And that was just the first domino in a cascade of fail. Sentient caps lock button Donald Trump forgot to bring his nouns to the debate.
Tremendous has been just sucked out of our country by China. We have to have a temporary something because there's something going on that's not good.
Tremendous something frontrunner good, not suck. And Rubio, he showed up to the debate all but wearing his likely nominee crown, and it took Chris Christie 10 seconds to crush him like a bug.
You have not been involved in a consequential decision where you had to be held accountable. You just simply haven't. That's not leadership, that's truancy.
Let's dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing.
That's what Washington, D.C. does. The memorized 25-second speech that is exactly what his advisors gave him.
This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not
true. There it is.
Whoops, that was a bit painful. Can we just watch the quicker version? I bet that Rubio wishes he left his kids at home tonight.
The media asked Hillary Clinton why she believes that all abortions should be legal, even on the due date of that unborn child.
Okay, that is literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Removing a baby on the due date isn't an abortion. It's called a cesarean.
I'd rather lose an election than be wrong on the issue of life.
Congratulations. Tonight you did both. Bye-bye.
I'm from Damascus. My parents tried several times to get me married. They tried to marry me off, but I didn't agree. Then, when another man came to propose to me, I immediately said no. After that, I was banned from going out, banned from going to work, banned from using the telephone. When I refused to marry, my brother, he would hit me. Once he tied me to a chair for 15 days, and I wasn't allowed to move. He beat me. He beat me with a computer cable. I could not stay in Jordan. My brother kept bringing me back home. I was afraid next time he might kill me. When I had to leave, I wanted to work. I wanted to start school. When I see my parents in the future, I just want them to maybe be proud of me and admit that their daughter actually achieved something good in society, instead of just being married off. And in the future, my brother sees me achieve something good, and he wants to tell everyone, she's my sister. But I will say, no, you are not my brother. And when I was on the plane, it was the most beautiful feeling in the world. I felt like my old life was finished, and I was starting a new one, a better one.